All right. So again, I figured I would do a little bit of everything, a little like mishmash of stuff, um, just to really kind of cover all users out there at all like kind of levels, and you know, happy to dive deep in into something on a future one of these little online sessions. Everybody seeing the flame and everything? All right, good. Excellent. Oh, hey, Quinn. Wonderful. Okay, so let's get started with just load this desktop here. All right. So I thought I would start with a couple. Oh, that's off to a good first start. Look at that, huh? Missing clips. Well, it wouldn't be a live event if there wasn't a video track, but we'll skip over and get back to, get back to that one in a second. So what I thought I'd start out with, yeah, I know, Eric. Thank you. Again, it wouldn't be a live. I think so far, and I'm sure if Greg Paul Malone were on this, he would remind me that this is the furthest we've ever gotten in an Andy live stream event without a technical glitch, and so you know, I'm already thrilled. Okay, so the first thing I just wanted to show everybody was something we do every day. I do a lot of beauty work, and these are a couple little tips that that really made a difference for me. The first is like, here's a clip. I got this clip from one of Grant Kay's fabulous tutorials on the Flame Learning channel. So big shout out to Grant, who we absolutely love. All right. So whenever we do beauty work, we're doing a lot of patching. You know, like if you wanted to get rid of a zit, you know, there's always patching that has to happen. And so I wanted to show you 3 different ways to do this. We'll start out with the GMass tracer, and then we'll add my absolute favorite keyboard shortcut of all time, which is Option Spacebar G, which will create a circle as a mask. All right, zoom in a little bit here, and go ahead and add a little softness, and I'll track the zit. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay. And we got a little magic there. So the way that I had been doing patching for little blemishes and zits forever was using a front source in action. Okay, so I would just create an action. I'd add a layer 1. Here I'd have the zit just marked out. I'd go into my node bin, go to source, source front, and then go ahead and move that little patch. Everybody, you know, everybody has a formula for this, but I tend to follow the lighting, you know, so sometimes it's usually like up and over, okay, until you get a patch of skin that kind of blends around there. And then when you go ahead and blur the matte a couple of pixels, you've got magic, okay? And we rinse and repeat and do this for every single blemish, you know, on the face. So this was the way that I had done this for years. And then I think it was Philippe who saw me do this once and almost had an aneurysm because he said the front source node wasn't the most efficient way to do this. And so a version and a half later, I think it was, of Flame, they went and introduced a Matchbox plugin or Matchbox node for Action that does the exact same thing. If you go into Action in Matchbox, you can see here under F, it's front matte offset, right? So here's front matte offset. Da, da, da. Oh, there we go. There we go. Sorry. There's front matte offset, and I can just do the exact same thing that I did with the front source, but I can do it with the little Matchbox here, right? And here are the Matchbox controls. So if I go into front offset, I can move this up and I can move it over, and we get the same effect. You know, when you're doing this and you end up, it always seemed like when you had 10 or more like source nodes on there, everything just kind of started to get sluggish and slow down. And the Matchbox node here seemed to be much more efficient, and you could do many more of them in one action, and you wouldn't get the slowdown. Thank you, Tone. Turn filtering off. So I thought this was great. So this is the way that I had been working for, maybe a couple years afterwards. And then I was talking with my good buddy, John Ashby, and showed him how I was doing this. And he responded back with, why the hell would you ever do that way? And, obviously someone questioned my technique. And so I got all like, oh, what are you talking about, John? And he pointed out, a shortcoming with either the front source or this little front mat offset. And that is, you lose the center. I mean, you don't lose the center. The center is still here, but you lose an icon for the center. And so if you were doing a front source and you needed to scale it for whatever reason, getting that center to be where the center needed to be usually involved some type of linking, a link expression, to get the XY values of the center to match the XY values of the axis that's doing the tracking. So he showed me a third way to do this, which I thought was wild, okay? And that was delete all this stuff. Well, I'll just leave it there. And that was take an action node, right? Connect it to your clip. Take your Gmask out of the tracer, which here's another thing I absolutely love about the evolution of Flame is that all your masks in Gmask tracer are copy and pastable right here in action, which is a wonderful addition. Thank you, dev team. And so when you do this, go into your node bin. I don't have any, layers coming into action or any media layers. All I have is the background here. But go ahead and add an image of that background. Okay. Take your Gmask that you have, go into Option G or Alt G to do a Gmask link, and then invert it. All right. And now you have the exact same functionality as an external Gmask, an external mat for this zit, right? But the advantage is now you have also a center icon for the layer that you need to move for offset. So I just pressed Y on the keyboard to change the cursor mode to center, which was again another like amazing. Thank you, Fred, for adding that to the hotkeys. Amazing addition. I've been doing this in After Effects forever, and then when I realized that I could do the same keyboard shortcut here, it was great. But anyway, you switch this back to there you go. See? Thank you, Jeff. Learning. Now I can go ahead and move this up and over, right? And you have your center there with you at all times. I just have to go into the mask itself here and blur it a little bit. All right, and you get the same thing. And the more I do stuff in action, the more I appreciate kind of doing everything in action. Again, everybody has their own way of working, and that's great. That's one of the beauties of Flame is that there are a million ways to do everything. But having everything that's happening in a comp visible in action to me was like, ooh, it was kind of transformative, and I've come to really appreciate that. And so that's 3 different ways to do your patching for zits. While we're here and we're talking about action, a Matchbox in action, another thing I wanted to show everybody in case you haven't seen it is there's this phenomenal, right-click context menu in action here to add stuff, right? I don't know how many people have seen this. I'm sure you all have at this point. But a feature that was added not that long ago that I absolutely love is you can edit the file that populates this list. And so I had been adding, basically over and over again, the same 3 matchboxes. Like if I needed to do a color correct to this, whoops, I got these sticky keys there. If I wanted to add a color correct here, I can add a color correct, and that's great. But I went ahead and modified the action context menu.xml file. So I have as a right-click option here, add color correct. Okay. And it's just, again, in the interest of reducing the number of repetitive strokes and clicks and everything that we do every day. This to me was great. So let me show you, in case you don't know, where, oh, Tone, it's like you and I have we're connected here. Let me show you where you can edit that file, okay? It's located in opt Autodesk presets. Command Shift G. Yep, Command Shift G will, or go to folder here, will take you to wherever you want to go. So I'm going to go to opt Autodesk presets. All right, you go to the version of software that you're using, and I, tend to keep 92 versions of software on my Mac, which is something I'm working through with my therapist. But if you go into presets, application version, and then action and context menu, you have the XML file here. All right, and when this first opens up, it looks like an XML file. It's got a million different lines, and they all basically look exactly the same, right? But the way to decipher this, the way to read this is you have your top category here, context menu, and then you start to see sections here which let you know, or groups really, which let you know what things are visible based on where you're clicking. So if you click anywhere in action or in the action schematic or whatever, that's technically like a no selection because you have nothing selected. And these are all the options that come up. But to get specifically to add like one of those, like a color correct matchbox to a surface, you scroll down. This is in alphabetical order to the surface group, right? So there's light here, material, object, particles, selective, stereo, and surface. There we go. And then I just did some copy and pasting, right? So it was right here. I added a separator, which creates one of those lines. And then here are 3 lines that I copied and pasted here. So it's an entry type matchbox, because I want to add a matchbox. You give it a name, right, of what you want to show up in the menu, and then the path to the matchbox shader, okay? So if you wanted to add another one, let me go back up here to presets, and then software version, and then matchbox. Oh no, I'm sorry, it's just presets matchbox, right? Yeah. Opt Autodesk presets. Oh, this is normally where I would text Fred. Hold on. Oh, well, there's an easy way to do this. Add a matchbox. Opt Autodesk presets version matchbox shaders. See, I was on the right track. Okay, so let's cancel this. Go back here. Opt Autodesk presets version matchbox shaders. And yeah, let's say that you're that guy who always uses bleach bypass, in every one of your artists. I guess that really should be gender neutral. Anybody could be the one artist who's always using the bleach bypass matchbox. So I'm just going to copy that and go back over here, and I'll just add this line. Or I guess I should copy and paste this line. Here. Bleach bypass. Did I get that right? I got that right. All right, let me save that. Come back here. And I do not remember for the life of me if, oh, that's right. Thank you, Bob. Yes, right here. Thank you. I'm going to change the name for what shows up in the menu. Otherwise, I'll have 2 add color corrects. And what fun would that be? Actually, it would be a lot of fun because you never know what you're going to get. It would add a little, unpredictability, which is just what we need right now, is more unpredictability in our lives, I think. All right, so add bleach bypass for the label. And if I go back into action here, hopefully, yes, add bleach bypass is one of the options. Okay. So if you have a few of these that you use all the time, that's how you add them. Okay. All right. Let me just mute a few more people here. Oh, thank you, Gil. Appreciate that. Check my list. Okay. Does anybody have any questions so far for the stuff that I showed? All right, sweet. Well, let's move on then. There was, oh, hold on, wait a minute. Does that same menu apply in image? You know, that I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's only in action because it's the action context menu. But Fred, are you still with us? I mean, online through the meeting, obviously. If so, please chime in. With every version upgrade, the file needs to be updated. I believe so, yes. This would be a testament to that we've been on the same version at Lively, where I worked for quite a while now. Ooh, that's a good question, Chris. Can you apply? Can you do like two of them in one? I've never tried. Again, I'm gonna leave that one to Fred. I'm gonna guess no. Yeah, I think I want to say no because well, let's find out. Why don't we find out here? We're gonna do a live experiment here. Actually, I bet you it won't work because my guess is no as well. Okay, well, you know what? As with all things in this life, I'm gonna go with Fred on this one. Yeah, I didn't see. You know, there's no. I'm guessing that the slash bracket kind of ends that little entry for that line. But hey, if that's something you would like to see, please add it as a feature request to Flame Feedback, and I'll be sure to upvote it. There was. Let's see. There was something on Logic. Oop, hold on. Hey, Fred, if you try that and it doesn't work. Ooh, let's look at that. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's great. Okay, so yes, all right. Well, then this is one way to keep it. I didn't even realize that was there. So yeah, you could then take your one XML file, put it somewhere that does that. You know, if you have a user folder or someplace on the server or someplace constant, and then you can always grab it from there. That's great to know. All right, awesome. Thank you, Fred. Let me go next through a little green screen breakdown, a little shot breakdown here. This was a shot I did last year for a show called The Deuce. And whoops. In all fairness, I'm on like my Apple keyboard here, as opposed to like the crazy loud mechanical keyboard that I keep hooked up to my my Linux Flame. So if I keep missing keys, that's why. I promise I'm getting enough rest. Let me take you through a shot here. So we had the shot in the show. I don't know, the final sequence in the show kind of had the lead character walking through Times Square and seeing everybody that he had met along the way. Except for one character, there's one character who wasn't available for the shoot that day. So they shot that character on green screen. So they provided us with this background plate here. And then a green screen plate. And they were nice enough to put some interactive lighting on there, you know. They were also nice enough to put the guy in a really shiny suit in front of the green screen. So, you know, obviously, you know, of all the wardrobe choices in the world, this would be the one that they would pick. But that's okay. That's all right. These are the things that happen. By the way, other little hotkey things, if you guys don't know these, spacebar A frames up everything in batch, and spacebar F will frame up whatever you have selected. Okay, and that works for like everything that you have selected. Um, like if you had just these selected and hit spacebar F, it would frame up on those. So great little shortcut there. Um, and I think those are flame hotkeys. Yeah, the smoke hotkeys for me, I have the same appreciation for those as I do people who run marathons. I know that they're out there. I know they're good people, but it's just something I can't bring myself to doing. You know, it's the same with the vertical reels. Okay, so let me take you through my little process here. The first thing that I did was I ran these clips through Neat Video to get rid of the noise. I don't have a copy of Neat installed here, but I do have the pre-renders. So I did that so we could work, you know, kind of minus the grain. Also, sometimes it's easier to key stuff without the grain. And I also decided when I was working on this that I wanted to use additive keying. I thought that might work well. I mean, okay, in full disclosure, I tried a regular key and then I was like, you know what, let's do an additive key on this. Hold on for 1 second. I have to let my cat in the room. Hold on. Yeah. Oh, hello. Yes. Cat has been my assistant for the last, like, you know, week that I've been working remotely. And so I mean, she does have a union representative, so I am gonna listen. So let me show you how I took care of this. The first thing that I did, even before the keying, was just went ahead and did some tracking. I did a planar track on this on the pole here where our guy is going to be standing, right? And it came out pretty well. And then I went and I copied and pasted that into an action node here to do my track, right? So I applied the track to my guy. And then went and started to do the additive keying process. And you know, just so you know, I was about to say, like, show of hands, who here has used additive keying? But I guess you can do a show of hands on here. But you know, the additive keying is an amazing thing. You just have to kind of think backwards because you can't, anything you wanted, you can't like fix it after the fact. Okay, like you can't pixel spread your way out of a bad edge after you do an additive key. All that kind of stuff you have to do before the additive key. So I went ahead here and you know, made a mat, just keyed the guy because I knew I was going to need it for pixel spreading and other things. Did a little pixel spread to help the edges out. And then I used a master key here just for the purpose of color suppression, right? You do have to dial the luminance down whenever you do the additive keying. So that's kind of what, you know, this is always like my main channel. But if you have never tried the AFX D-Spill that John Ashby made, the Matchbox, it's amazing. I have no idea how it works. It has almost no options, you know, except what color do you want to suppress and how much. And so I'm fine with that, you know. And so this was working, you know, working well for certain parts of the image, and the master key was working better for other parts of the image. So, you know, I combined two different suppress passes here. And then piped all this into Ivar's Croc additive key. Ta-da! And here's what I got. Okay. And it was a beautiful thing. By the way, I'm running this on my MacBook Pro. So this is 3K stuff running on MacBook Pro. Why the additive keyer is connected to the pixel spread. What does that do? I've never seen it use it anyway. Oh, sure. As I was working on this, and maybe I can show it. The last additive keyer input is set to pixel spread. Let's see. That's why, JT. I needed to shrink in the edges. I'm trying to remember what the last input was for. Hold on. Where are, let me add a new one of these because Evars usually have notes that didn't make it over here. Yes, or maybe it was the clean green screen. That's got to be what it was. Thank you, Baran. It helped the key out if you piped in a clean green screen, and they didn't shoot one. So I did hear like a parallax contract in a major way to create what is essentially a clean green screen around our guy. And it seemed to help the cause. Okay. I then went and had to do a bunch of work. Everything after this additive key was to put the people on top. At the very beginning of the clip, these, I mean, what are obviously annoying tourists were making their way through the frame. And they're, you know, everybody's favorite type of tourist, the ones that have, you know, motion blur and things like that. So I did a series of pixel spreads on them, if I remember. Yes. Just to create enough material to give me stuff to deal with the motion blur, right? And then I had to paint my way out of the mess, basically, whatever was left, because there was a little bit of stuff peeking in behind the tourist's shoulders. I did then I used one of my favorite rather, Evar Croc matchboxes is Croc Light Wrap. You can see here, right, just to get a little bit of love as this shot goes and plays down. There's all kinds of light coming in from the changing, you know, LED screens here in Times Square, and this just gave like a little bit of a little bit of interactive lighting on him as everything went around. And then color correct. The final thing I did was I kind of went one frame at a time on the original plate. And hold on. Whoops. Did it again. Come back. Batch. Man. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I went like one frame at a time on the original plate here. And hold on. My poor MacBook Pro. Sweating here as I do this. You can see the light changed often because of what was going on in the background. So I went and added a bunch of keyframes to color correct our character, our guy here, so that as the background, you know, got warmer because there was a big, you know, big warm light source now from the changing screens, he warmed up as well. And then finally, a little bit of an edge blur, because who doesn't love a little bit of an edge blur? Just to seed them in there. And then it was a matter of putting the original grain back on top. And this was for a show. Our client was very adamant about maintaining, you know, the grain from the original plate. So a few years back, the lovely and talented and lovely Darren Hoffmeyer, who I see has joined us, came to New York to do one of to present at one of our New York user groups. And he showed how he could take a degrain, an original plate, and then a degrained plate from that went through Neat Video, and using a comp node set to subtract, you create what is essentially a noise pass. I don't know how much of this is coming through on the stream, but what you do get here is you get a pass for the noise that you can then mathematically add to the end of the pipe here with, where is it? Here we go, an add node, right? It's normally what we do is, oh, Nicholas, let's see, look at it in linear. Hello, thank you, Nicholas. So yeah, so there's our noise. Okay, but let me leave it in this for a second, because one thing I needed to do was, you know, we had two different plates here. We had a background and we had a guy, and I needed to add the noise from both. I needed to do this subtract noise pass to both our background plate and the guy, so that way I could incorporate both of that original, both plates or pieces, layers, thank you, of that original noise plate there together. So that way, here's the noise from our guy, here's the noise in the background, here's a mat for our guy, and now we have a noise pass comp together. And then that gets added back on top here. Oh, it's like daytime. There we go. All right. No, Brooks, no, I have not tried the light wrap in action yet, and it's not for a lack of wanting to. I just haven't had the opportunity. I'll be the first to admit that I'm as guilty as everybody else of, using what works until I have a chance to try it. But you've now inspired me. I will use it on my next project. How about you, Brooks? Have you used it? You've had good luck with it? Cool. All right. I will report back after trying it and let you know how it goes. And that, my friends, is our green screen shot. Let me see. I have a render here. See how well this plays. It plays terribly if you do that. Let's see how well it plays. So there you go. And that's a little shot breakdown for you. Anybody have any questions or anything about that? Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. All right. And thank you, Dave. Appreciate that too. There was some talk. Thank you, JT. There was some definitely some a lot of people replied in that poll that they'd love to see. Isn't there a procedural way? There's a way to answer Peter's question. There's like a multiply and then divide, I believe, kind of procedural trick. I've used that not so much for something like this, but like there were a bunch of shots in this show where we had to clean up a lot of things on the street because the show took place in the 70s, and there were like bike lanes in the street that we had to get rid of, and cars were driving over them. So what I would do is I would use the multiply and divide trick to kind of create a blurred version of the plate and use that to as like a source to fill a G mask for the headlights that were of the car that was driving over the thing that I removed. So I've used that. And then as far as Brooks, is there more info anywhere on how to add grain back like you just showed? I'm gonna, I can look and see if we still have like the thing that Darren showed. But if not, it's really simple. You just remove the grain. Let me go back into batch here. This is kind of complex here, but basically you subtract the denoise from the original and then add that to the end of your comp. And that's pretty much it. It's interesting. I just finished a show that was done in linear, and it was the first time I'd ever worked in linear, and the grain was much more pronounced than in linear than I'd ever seen, and this trick here didn't work as well, or I shouldn't say it didn't work as well, but there were a lot more like ghosted edges of the grain of things that I had removed that I had to go and patch out of the grain pass in order to make that work. And I think it's a side effect of working in linear. There was oh hell yes, I've learned that, Nicholas. Thank you. I've actually learned that there are a bunch of things that work better in log and in linear. But speaking of log and linear, I want to just show a couple really basic things that I know about color management. Again, color management is something that I've really only had to kind of deal with maybe in the last year of a much longer career than 1 year. And it's something we brought it up. I remember at one of the early New York Flame user group meetings, like maybe back in like 2016, that like, you know, in New York, generally speaking, like in the commercial world, you know, we were given our color graded footage. We were given it to us, you know, Rec 709, and it was graded. And you were told if you valued your life, don't ever touch it. Okay. And that was really all that, you know, most of us knew about color management was don't change what you get from the color grade. That's all different now. And so let me show you just a couple of things that I've learned about color management. Again, this is really on a beginner's, maybe even a beginner's level, maybe slightly intermediate level. Color management is a science, and I applaud anybody who you know, is devoting their life to doing this, because it's a challenge, and it's a challenge, and that's all I'm going to say about it right now. But it's a thing, and it's not going anywhere. So let me just re-import these two missing clips. Oh, I do need to delete something. Yeah. Okay. Hold on. Seeing how a little bit of my show prep here. Okay. So let me import these two clips that I have. All right. So this footage here was shot on an Alexa, and it was shot Alexa Log C. And one thing I've learned about color management that is like an absolute rule is there's no little bit of color management. If you're going to start working in a managed color environment, then like it's all or nothing. Okay, and just kind of keep that in mind, and it'll make your life a lot easier as you try to adapt to this little brave new world. So these clips here are Alexa Log C, and as you can see here, it looks kind of flat, like a Log C or a file from an Alexa would look. So what to do about that? Well, traditionally, this is what we would do, right? And I say traditionally because this is like one of those loaded questions, right? Is you take a color management node and you do something like this. You go color transform and import and go to camera and ARRI and say log C to HD video, all right? And what you're doing here is you're applying the LUT that essentially shows you what the client saw on the monitor on set, all right? And that's great. And this is what we did for years when someone would give us this footage so we could start working on it, at least in TV land, right, or commercial land. I did learn something differently, though, a different way to handle this a while back, which was very helpful. And that was, if you add a color management node, instead of just hitting, loading a LUT here under color transform, you can hit custom. And custom gives you this great menu here, which maybe at first looks imposing because you're going to see the biggest pop-up menu in the history of pop-up menus. But trust me, it's not. This basically lets you pick all the LUTs, combinations of LUTs and cameras and everything that you'd have to dig your way through a file browser on, and they're right here, and you can stack them up. So I'm just going to apply the same thing. I'll go and say I want to do a camera transform, and the camera that I want is ARRI, and then log C to HD video. So I'm doing the same exact thing here. Okay. And then, you know, I can't tell you how many times back in the day before I knew better, and if Doug Walker's on this chat, he's going to probably pass out. So someone should keep a bucket of cold water ready to throw at Doug. Back in the day, we used to do things like apply one of these LUTs and then invert that, you know, to get it back to the way it was. So here you have like log C, and then this turns this to video, right? And then we would duplicate the color management node and hit invert. and go like, all right, we're back in log C. So now I can give this back to like the colorist, and they'll have all the, you know, color information from the original file. And I learned the hard way that that's not true at all, okay? And so if I add a little difference mat here, you can see that even though before and after might, you know, look similar, if you hit a difference, you can see that it's not at all. And this is just the byproduct of doing that conversion from log C to Rec 709. Is you're clipping a lot of the brights, you're losing some color information. And so if you do get log C footage and you want to work with it without screwing it up like this, there's a much easier way. It's called a viewing LUT. And again, I learned this when we started working on the show. So let me show you a couple other things here too. Also, what's really, really wonderful about the color management here in Flame from a beginner's standpoint is there's this notion of tagging. Remember I said like a minute ago, this kind of stuff is all or nothing, right? Color management. So right now, when I loaded this clip into Flame here, it came in with its color space or color information is unknown. Doesn't know what it is, okay? But I can add a color management node. This is one way to do it anyway. And click on tag only. And then I can tag this as Alexa log C. Boom. And now all of a sudden, look, it looks better. I'm doing air quotes here, right? And it's not that it looks better. It's just that in the color color management preferences here, right? We have a whole bunch of viewing rules, and one of the viewing rules is, hey, you know, if you have a clip that's tagged as, you know, log, then try to convert that, show it in log space essentially, right? And and that's what Flame is doing for you, right? That's this little active button right here. Can't tell you how many years I just ignored this button because I didn't know what it was or it didn't do anything for me. But this applies a viewing LUT. So this is applying this this LUT here to the footage without actually touching the footage itself. So this is, you know, if you need to work on the original source like camera file and not but you want to see what it's going to look like in HD video. This is how you go about it. In fact, I'm going to go one step further though, and that is if we go back to preferences. And again, I can't say enough that this is a whole science, right, of color management. So I'm doing this as a, like, you know, anyway, as a primer here. I'm going to create a new rule, right, that I'll call Alexa log C to video, right? And under transform here, I'm going to say add new. And from transform file, I'll go back to the camera folder, array folder, and pick that LUT that I started this whole spiel with, right? And I'll call this the same thing, log C to video. And the incoming color space is array log C. So what this is saying is any footage that is tagged as log C Alexa wide gamut will automatically have this viewing LUT applied, okay? And show it in the Rec 709 color space. And just to simplify things, I'm going to turn off the other log presets here. Okay, and so now, right, because this is an Alexa log C tagged clip, it's getting the Alexa log C viewing LUT applied. Okay. And so as long as you do that ahead of time, as long as you tag the footage, then you're going to see it in HD video, but you're not affecting what's really there. The original is maintained. So two other quick things about color management here, at least in this topic, is there are other ways to tag things. I know some people like to see everything out in batch, which is great. So you can see that this is applying a tag, but you could also activate the color management button here on the clip itself, and you can tag the clip here. All right, and you'll get the exact same result. Whoops. okay? Another thing that you can do is you can tag stuff on the way in, and tags are non-destructive. Right here, when you go and bring in your clip, you can, under tag only here, you can tag this as log C on the way in, okay? And now it's got the tag applied, right? This is now, it's the same thing as if you turn this on, but it's done for you. And if you really want to get crazy, and hey, why not? Another thing you can do in preferences, color management, is you can create an import rule, all right? You can create a rule here that says, like, I'll show you. Those kind of files are here. This is, oh, I'm going to screw this up. I know I'm going to screw this one up. Let's see. Alexa log C ESRs, all right? EXRs. So basically it's saying, and there's a great help page on this that I really should have open right now. If your extension is this, right? Oh, why didn't that keep? Oh, I got it in the wrong blank. That's right. Is EXR, and the pattern is this. Hold on, let me go to the stars. Faster. Oh, I'm not having a good time here. Oh, I see it. I got one of these. There we go. I had the wrong kind of bracket. Then what this is saying is anything that you bring in that's an EXR is automatic with either capital or lowercase .exr extension is automatically going to be tagged with the log C color space. And the other thing you can do with pattern is you can also put in paths. So for instance, you can point this just at like the folder where your camera footage is coming from. So that way EXRs you get from your CGI department that should be linearized or something like that don't get this lookup table apply. And Alex, no, I have not. I've only ever done 2 color managed projects, and they were both like really long. But this is what I've gleaned from a newbie to this kind of work. Let's see. So now if I go to import here and say tag only from rules, it didn't work. Man, I told you I was going to screw this up. Let me see. Yada-dee. Try it again. Nope. Damn it. No, they're EXRs. That's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah. There we go. Okay. I had the pattern in the wrong place. There we go. So yeah, so now here are EXRs, and they're automatically having the Alexa wide gamut LUT or a tag applied to them. All right. And you can always turn that off and on. Okay. Any questions on the world's smallest color management explanation? The extension is the extension, the other than the main part of the file name. From Brit, what if your elements are in different color spaces? Big screen at the top. Oh, okay. Let me see if I might not have anything here that I can show with that. But the question is like, hold on. Here I am in batch, and everything is, you know, everything is in log space, right? What do I do if I'm given something that needs to be converted, essentially? Hold on. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Shiver. Like here, this clip here. Hello. Oh, copy. Thank you. So this one here is Rec 709. So let me just tag that. All right. Oh, and you can see when you have color management on it, it does, I should re-import these. It's smart enough to respect the color management there. Right, so here I've got a clip in Rec 709 and it's showing it to me in video, which it should be, and here is the Alexa clip and it's showing it with the viewing wheel that I put on. But come on. Come on. My poor Mac. You take this, if you needed to take this Rec 709 clip and put it in Alexa log C space, you can add a color management node, right? Go to custom and add camera, ARRI log C to HD video, right? But invert that, okay? Right, and that's what this is doing here. I keep hitting the wrong key, hold on. The other thing I've had to convert is like if someone gives you like hold on, I'm gonna have to quit Flame here. I'm getting the old menu stack underflow. Let me do that. The other thing I've had to do is like I've been given artwork. I'll be given a PNG or a Photoshop file or something of a sign that has to go in Times Square. And with that, you have to convert it from sRGB to whatever your working space is. So you can like remove sRGB, which essentially makes it, I believe it makes it Rec 709, and then you can convert it from Rec 709 into Alexa log C space, if that makes sense. Boy, to say, does anyone have any questions about color management? It is really the ultimate in open-ended questioning, right? Okay, you got it, Britt. Let me just move on to one last thing, and then because we were coming up on an hour, and I wanted to try to keep it to that. Let me show you. I saved my favorite thing for last, and that's just a little bit of Python stuff. I have a full Python presentation that I'll do as like a separate one of these. Oh, what's the RAM on that MacBook Pro? 16 gigs. This is like the first year that the Touch Bar MacBook Pro came out, and it runs surprisingly well, I have to say, for what it is. So let me show you a couple of Python things. I got into this whole Python scripting thing just as an attempt to try to automate some things, to cut down on the repetitive stuff that we do a million times a day, just try to work more efficiently. So I'm just going to give you a little taste of some of the things that you can do with Python in Flame, and of course we'll dive deeper in a separate one of these little meet and greets. Here's one that happens all the time, right? Exporting and delivering spots. So with Flame, you do get some example Python scripts and Python hooks that show you some of the functionality, and it's possible with Python to call export presets. So I'm sure we all have export presets. You know, if I go to export here, yeah, just to pull this up, right? I mean, I have, a few export presets here, but for all the things that you use them for, a ProRes 444 and uncompressed, various, you know, Avid, codecs, whatever. We all have export presets. So I have a Python script here that calls two of them and applies them at the same time. I'll show you what it does, and then I'll show you the script. So like in this show that we did the green screen for in the Deuce, the client wanted everything that we posted for them as two different flavors of QuickTime, the DNX36 and a DNX115. He wanted them each in their own folder, and he wanted the DNX115 version to have an underscore HQ in the file name, okay? And so I wrote a little script here, and then again, let me export and I'll show you the script called episodic posting, right? So I apply this to the clip, and then two exports happen, okay? And if I go back to the Finder here and go to my desktop, I have this folder called exports. So that script created a dated folder, and then it created DNX115 with the shot there with underscore HQ and a DNX36 encoded QuickTime without it, okay? And everything's spelled right, and everything's where it has to be, and you don't have to screw it up a million times, which is also why I do this Python stuff, because if anybody's guilty of that, it's me. Let me show you the script so you can see what's going on. All the Python scripts are in, just gonna opt Autodesk shared Python. Shared Python. Here, there we are. I made it just for this. Episodic exports, here we go. Okay, so all that this is really doing here is, and again, I'll dive into this deeper later, but it's calling these two presets. So this is exactly the same as if I exported this twice using the two different presets there. And if I were to go into the preset and show it to you, you'll see that in there, export, like let me take the DNX36 one, or the 115 one, that's probably better, is under the pattern here, I have a token for date, so it creates the date, and then the folder 115, and then the name of the clip that's exported, and then underscore HQ. Okay, and so to get this to work, all I really did was modify the demo script that comes with Flame for the export hooks, and then just kind of added, you know, modified it to be, you know, where I want the folder to go, and then a clip to go, and then what presets I want to use. Okay, and you know, you take that and you just run with it. So here's a spot, right? It's slated. It's just a spot. I mean, it's right, or a representative spot, and everybody, I'm sure, hates Extreme Reach. I mean, we love the people that work there, but can you mix a sequence published with a movie export? You know, I think you can. I haven't tried, but I think you can. You know what, Tone? I'll take a look and I'll get back to you on Logik. I wrote a little Python script here. Every time we export a spot, thank you, Fred. I said at the last New York meeting, you guys are watching in real time. What usually happens on my train rides, my commutes into New York, is I ask these questions to Fred and I get a response back. In that case, Tone, I'll work on one and I'll post it on Logik for you. Yeah, I will post the script or a link to like a Dropbox folder for it. So here's a spot. Every time we export a spot from work, we always have to export it for our library as a full 10-second slate and with a full second of black at the end, right? But of course, Extreme Reach, being the individuals that they are, they want, you know, 7 slates to start at 7 and 2 frames of black at the tail, or whatever it is. So I wrote a little script here to make Extreme Reach in and out points. So this is a 30. So I do that, and then I get Extreme Reach in and out points. So here, if we look at the timeline, you have an in point marked at 7 automatically, and an out point marked at 2 frames of black. And so I have also another script here called extreme reach export, all right? And so this prompts me for a folder. I have that baked into the script, and the script is that it's the same export folder here. So I'll just make another folder called I love extreme reach, okay? Click open, and now what's happening in the background is two export presets are being called. In fact, let me show this to you because there's one extra bit of love happening here. So I have here the two export presets that are being called. This first one is makes an uncompressed QuickTime, and the second one does a ProRes QuickTime, right? And then there's little commands here in Python that say, for the extreme reach one, click on that button in export that says export between marks, okay? So what you're getting, the uncompressed one is just the full spot. The extreme reach one, the ProRes 444, is being clipped at the in and out points, okay? And you'd think after giving this demo like 4 times, I'd remember to make these like 15s. They're always long exports, but some people never learn. So out here in the export folder, in my I love extreme reach, I have an extreme reach folder that has the spot that starts at 7, and it's a ProRes 444, which you can see down here. And the other one for our library at Lively is the uncompressed, which starts at 10 and has the full second of black at the tail. Okay, so one export, everything's done the right way with the right codecs, with the right in and out points, and you don't have to export it, screw it up, put your jacket on, get ready to leave, and then get told you have to do it again, which I'm sure is something we can all relate to. One final quick thing I want to show you Python related is over in batch. I'm gonna bring up something else, a different desktop. Yes. Is my first love with Python was in batch, okay? The first things that I learned how to do was to create nodes. You have this wonderful tool here called the Python console, right? Which allows you to do things like type something and see something happen, okay? So for example, if I wanted to create a mux node here, I would type flame.batch.create_node, and then in parentheses and quotes, I would say a mux, right? Actually, no, I'm going to go one better than that. I'm going to create a variable called new mux. New mux equals create mux. So now when I press play here, oh, look at that. I got a mux. It's delicious, right? Okay. There's another little Python command here called, get value dot attributes for this mux. And so if I were to press play on that, it shows me all the different attributes that I can affect or take advantage of, or define, I guess, with Python for the mux node, like position, name, hide input, output. Basically, everything that you can do to a mux node out here in batch, you have available to you in here. And so if I were to delete this and then go back and say, all right, well, then new mux, now that I know name is an option, dot name equals, oh, how about new mux? Right? Oh, new mux, boom. And there you go, okay? And so on and so on. Obviously, I've just showed you the very basic of this, but like what you end up doing when you, at least the way I approached this was like, what am I doing a million times a day? And how can I get the machine to do it for me? So I have a command here that will just create a mux, okay? And it automatically connects it to the thing you had connected before, right? How many times have you painted something and then said, oh, I need to freeze this at frame 90? Well, I made a mux called add mux node and freeze, all right? And so it freezes the mux at frame 90, it connects the front and back, and then it labels it with whatever frame it's frozen at. And Tone, yes, anytime, once you add a Python script to that folder, it becomes available to you in the shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts menu. If you just sort by hooks or sort alphabetically and go to hooks here, like add mux and freeze, I can put that to like Control Command Alt F or something like that, right? Oops. So yeah, so I could click on this and do Control Alt Command F, boom, and there it is. Okay. And it's great. Okay. And I just want to show you just a couple. Right. Well, I had Brooks. I had was it Jesse from Instinctual told me. Do I have it in here? I might not have it in here. I'll get to that one later. Look, whenever we were creating batch groups, right? I would make a new batch group, and I would always want to call the first one of these things source. Whoops. And the second schematic real ref for reference, and the third schematic real precomps for precomps, right? And so on and so on. Everybody has their own like formula for doing this. So I wrote a little script here, custom desktop, create new batch group. And so when you do that, it's already called lively batch, and it already has, actually there's 4 of them in there, source, ref, notes, and precomps. Okay. Oh, yes. Yes, Chevrolet, I'll show you that one, right? Yep, you can select all the nodes here, and then I have one called, oh, here it is, encompass selected nodes. Little pop up there, you know, new compass, and then you get a compass with that name. Okay. And you'll see these are all simple little things, but they just, as you have to do this stuff repetitively, it just becomes a time saver, right? So to show you kind of like the ultimate time saver with this is I do, typically what happens is we do a conform, right? Then the client comes in for like a red pen session to take notes and everything for what they want to clean up or what they want to do. So I went and I built one of those, right? I went and built like what would that look like? Well, you know, I got my what do you call it here? I've got my source clip here, and I've got my rough cut here, and I know I'm going to need a paint to take those red pen notes, right? And I know I'm going to want to freeze that. You already saw that I know how to do that. I'm going to want an action in there for something because we always need an action in there. I do a lot of neat video and things like that, and yada yada. So I built like a template for what I wanted this stuff to look like, and then transcribed that essentially into a Python script, which goes something like this. Oh, I'm sorry. First thing, also, let me just open this up. I said, come on, sticky key. There we go. Is I have one that makes the. Let me just make sure the reels are the right name. But anyway, basic batch setup. Boom. There you go. Okay, so this automatically gets created now just from a source clip, a rough cut, and a render node. Okay. And the like extrapolation of this is, let me just replace this and open all these guys up. So I did a conform, right? Oh man. I did a conform. I broke out the shots into batch groups. My client came by, or my client will be here any minute. They're freaking out, as they always are for some reason. I don't know why. And so I can just go and say, you know, apply this to all the shots. And so boom, I've got now all my shots are ready to go. Everything's broken out with and preset for, you know, the client to come in and take notes. I even have my preferences loaded. Like I have when I do red pens, you know, I have a paint setup already for, you know, 4 different colors for 1, 2, 3, 4 on the keyboard, blah, blah, blah. And so on. This adds a neat video as an OFX. It adds a render or a write node, whichever you prefer, and all kinds of things, really whatever you need to do. And on like the episodic show that we just finished, I'll have to show you that guy. I'll show that one in the deep dive, you know, where all of a sudden you get 50 shots that have to be broken out with this show had 3 different resolutions and 35 different LUTs, I think. And of course a CDL for each shot. And so I had a giant, like 1,000-line Python script that would just build all of that, including slates, all from a Google Sheet, like from a CSV. And it just saved in hours and hours and hours of time. And it was all correct, which is just as important. So more on that on the Python deep dive, but that's all I have for today. Does anybody have any other questions or anything? All right. Thanks, everybody.